Dear viewers, welcome to the show Power Chat, Nepal's only TV talk show in English discussing development since 2016. Through this episode tonight, we are discussing about human rights in Nepal with particular focus on the transitional justice and the state of impunity in Nepal. And I'm joined tonight by Dr. Mandira Sharma. She is the Senior International Legal Advisor for the International Commission of Jurists. She has been into the field of human rights for more than 2.5 decades. Also the founder of Advocacy Forum Nepal. And also I am joined tonight by Dr. Ram Kumar Bhandari. He belongs to the victims family here in Nepal, victim rights activist. Also the founder of Network of Families of the Disappeared in Nepal. Let's talk. Welcome to this show.
Thank you very much.
It is my pleasure to have both of you in this show, as you have been long engaged in the field of human rights. And coincidentally, both of you have done PhD in transitional justice, discussing insights from Nepal. I would like to start from Dr. Sharma. How do you evaluate the overall human rights situation in Nepal at the moment?
Well, I think in some front we have made some progress. For example, institutionalizing some of the achievements that we had made in the past have been reflected in the constitution. There is a strong constitutional protections on some of the fundamental rights. But for me, if you really ask me, I think impunity for the crimes of human rights violations is so entrenched that remains a major challenge in protection and promotion of human rights. It also undermines rule of law. It also undermines all the achievements that we have made so far. So I think political patronage and also impunity are the major threats in ensuring human rights protection and promotion of human rights in the country. So from that perspective, we are in a very difficult context.
What are the key issues that have been forgotten by the stakeholders, especially the state agencies here in Nepal, addressing the issues relating to transitional justice and impunity?
I think if we see comprehensive peace agreement as a sort of juncture, there were a number of promises made. Some of the promises have been fulfilled. Those promises that were directly related to the political actors, political parties, that have been fulfilled to some extent. But unfortunately, the agenda of justice, redressing the past, looking into the cases of human rights violations, providing remedies to the victims, establishing truth, still remain unfulfilled. And major political parties have failed so far to establish transitional justice mechanisms as promised and to address those problems. And these actually helps to strengthen impunity in the country. For example, we have documented hundreds of cases of human rights violations. National Human Rights Commission has done so. Even these two transitional justice bodies have also documented thousands of cases of human rights violations. Despite all those violations, not even a single perpetrator has been brought to justice. We have not been able to establish the whereabouts of any of those whose whereabouts is still not known, who are disappeared, for example. So I think in terms of remedying victims of human rights violations, establishing truth and justice to victims, we are far behind, and political parties have repeatedly failed to fulfill their promises.
Well, Dr. Bhandari, do you agree with her interpretation of transitional justice instruments are not functional? Plus, how do you observe the overall state of human rights today in Nepal?
Yes, I do agree with her. The state of impunity is growing, and all the known perpetrators still sit in positions, both in security forces, government, parliament, and political parties. That's a very sad scenario, and that we know the perpetrators, we have named them. Even National Human Rights Commission recently published few names of those perpetrators, but government and the state agencies failed to punish them and failed to provide some justice to the victims. So, and still, and we don't know, and what about the status of the disappeared and all the perpetrators, and then they don't care about this justice stuff in the country, and the government and the political parties, when we see from outside, they are defender of the perpetrators. State has become a defender of them, and then they protect them all the time. They have promoted them, and then those perpetrators and the political parties who protect the criminals, they drive the transitional justice, and then they all the time are obstructing the justice process in Nepal.
Well, what are the key lapses within the state system?
I think there are key problems in transitional justice process in Nepal from the very beginning. The comprehensive peace agreement that envisioned some transformative an aspect of the peace process, the political parties never implemented their own political agreement and also the peace agreement. Later they committed some points in an interim constitution. We have a new constitution now and the new government formation, but they have forgot about the past. They have forgotten, and they never implemented that. I mean, what they have committed to deliver to the victims. And so there are legal obstruction, there are political obstruction, and the role of, I mean, there are key institutions, the role of parliament, the role of political parties, the role of the court, and then also we can and also assess the role of international agencies and the local implementing agencies. There are some key problems in the understanding of transitional justice, and also they have never let victim participate in the process, and they have all the time and ignored the role of victims and their movement. These are the key problems.
Well, Dr. Sharma, what do you think? Why effective prosecutions have not been carried out against the perpetrators of the conflict time?
There are challenges at different levels. Impunity in Nepal predates Nepal's conflict. I mean, we tend to think sometimes that this is a problem of conflict, because the human rights violations in the period of conflict happen in a particular political context, and we might have to look into it from different perspectives. That's the argument that we often hear. But if we really see the trajectory of impunity in Nepal, it actually transcends beyond conflict. It was a problem in democracy as well. It was a problem during Panchayat, and we claim that the necessity of democracy, multi-party democracy, was to really restore rule of law and to protect people's rights, actually. So that's how we promised the multi-party democracy. But unfortunately, we could not really address the problem of injustices, inequalities, expressed through the implementations of laws. For example, in Constitution, every person is equal before the law, but people were never equal before the law. Law protects only certain people. Certain people are always above the law, but certain people are always, discriminated, from the treatment of law. So we promised that democracy would address that, but unfortunately we couldn't address that. That's why if you really see many political parties' analysis of those time, they have also concluded that injustices, corruptions, lack of inclusion, all those sort of things were the factors motivating people to join People's War, and that has been claimed by the Maoist Party at that time as well. But unfortunately, all those violations that happened during the conflict also have gone unattended, unaddressed. The justice aspect has been ignored. So impunity.
What could be the motive behind, not addressing these issues at the moment?
I think now, if we really analyze now, I think those who are involved in human rights violations are the one in power. So they control the lawmaking process, they control the state machineries, they control police, they control judiciary, they control prosecution. So I think the whole justice system is in a way under the influence of those who are involved in human rights violations in the past. That is one of the key problems that I see. Second, because of these political interferences in different institutions, those institutions envision to provide justice to victims are not able to function properly and are not able to function impartially and independently. That is another problem. The other problems are, the way we have developed our infrastructures that really discriminate certain marginalized people, those who subjected to serious human rights violations come from marginalized community. They don't have the voice, and political parties, our structures have actually failed to really address those sort of issues. So there are like multi-layers problems that contribute to the perpetuations of this impunity in the country. But I'm pretty confident that this extent of impunity cannot sustain that long.
Well, Dr. Bhandari, who has to play the important role at the moment so that the state actors are able to address the cases of the conflict time, providing justice to the victims' families?
No, most importantly, government must be responsible to handle all these issues and differences. I think government, even they fail to and handle the differences, and within political parties, and then within various actors of transitional justice, this is important. And then government must be accountable. There are some legal provisions, and there are some political agreements and commitments they have made in the past. They have to implement it. And from other side, the government agencies and the transitional justice agencies, they have neglected the role of victim advocacy. I think victim advocacy and the overall wider transitional justice advocacy must be part of the transitional justice process, both at formal and informal level. And then we have to increase the role of the local and provincial government also. They have to be responsible because they are the one locally, and they can handle the issues and they can lead the process, and also they can lead and wider victims participate in the and wider process. And there are some lags and then loopholes that how the central government, federal government failed to deliver this process, and in the formation of commission, in the making of law and the different act of transitional justice, they have all the time failed and ignored the grassroots agenda of the victims.
Why do you think so? Why the constitutional bodies like TRC and CIDP, also that of the NHRC's recommendations that came a few months ago, have not been implemented here in Nepal? And how can these institutions be, made responsible and accountable?
No, all institutions, including TRC and the Disappeared Commission, they are remote from victims' realities. They only sit in the capital, and they don't know, what are the real contexts at the grassroots level and how the families have been suffering through, and then they have never included their voices in the process. And so there are very clear flaws in the process, and then there are not clear laws in the act. That's why we have been advocating to amend the act. According to the Supreme Court verdicts and also the recommendation made by OSCHR and the UN bodies, and also our NHRC, National Human Rights Commission, all the time recommended government to amend the act to directly work with the victims and develop some partnership with the victims and human rights community. But the government and these bodies fail to achieve the result, and they are failing victims.
Dr. Sharma, there is criticism about civil society organizations' role addressing these all concerns you are sharing with us. How do you see the role of civil society organizations at the moment?
I think civil society organizations should be more proactive in terms of raising these issues, because they're supposed to be the only voice at this kind of states of affairs, considering that all those different institutions are in a way influenced by the political actors having interest to avoid justice process and to strengthen impunity. There are civil society here in Nepal is also very diverse. Diversity is, I think, one of the key.
You're trying to say that it is divided, serving to some sort of political interest?
I think civil society is engaged in different kind of affairs. So I cannot really represent all the the sectors of civil society, I would say. I think those who have been involved in transitional justice process, at least those who have been monitoring the process in transitional justice, I think they have made certain progress in terms of making this agenda as the sort of national agenda. But there are also issues. I think civil society organizations, the members of civil society organizations are also alleged to have been affiliated with different political parties and having a sort of or serving the interest of different political parties. I think having a political affiliations is not a problem. That's a fundamental rights of every citizens in this country. But I think whether we stand for justice, whether our ground is really based on principle that we respect, which are universal, is something which is sometimes questionable. But I don't really think that is the case in all actors of civil society. We have been in this field for many years, and we have been constantly demanding accountability and addressing impunity and a sort of comprehensive transitional justice process that does not only establish truth but also reparations, justice, and guarantee of non-repetitions, because we don't really want to see these sort of violations repeating in future. One of the major pillars of transitional justice is also to ensure or take measures to ensure that those atrocities that we experienced in the past won't be repeated in future. But unfortunately, as we continue to fail the violations in the past, the violations are committed now, and we could see that happening in the future as well. So I think that's where we really need to play a role. I agree to some extent that the civil society is not really concentrating their efforts in terms of addressing this problem of impunity, which is endemic, pandemic, and that is really destroying the justice system in the country, rule of law, the foundations of democracy in the country. But unfortunately, we have not been able to put our concentrated effort in addressing that. But maybe there are rooms to work there too.
Well, Dr. Bhandari, beside changing the mandate of these constitutional bodies, especially TRC and CIDP as per the Supreme Court verdict, what are the victims' key concerns that must be addressed within any future amendment of these TJ instruments?
I think in our Nepal's conflict, in my observation, there are three key causes of the conflict, the root causes. Those were the structural violence, how the government structure violated human rights, and how people have been victimized from those structural violence, and the poverty. Many people and the victims from very poor background from rural areas, and the marginalization, how the government agencies and our structure continuously marginalize them from the state process, political process, social and economic processes. So the majority of the victims of conflict from Nepal, they are from very poor background, illiterate and unemployed, and still residing in the countryside. And so there are a variety of needs and then about their everyday life, their and economic life, and their other livelihood problems they face. They suffer continuously. So the government from the very beginning and other agencies and working in transitional justice, they have very little deliver about those everyday needs and the victims' problems, and what are the key priorities of them, and then what are the key concerns of victims, and have been continuously ignored. That was the one problem. And other side, the political parties politically manipulated all the time, and the other agencies also legally and handle these issues, and so their social, economic and the psychosocial and issues have been ignored. And so that's why I think the livelihood concerns and memorialization, and then the protection of and evidences and all these issues are the key concern of the families. And all the time, all the families, I think they want to know the truth. They want to participate in the justice process, and also the reparation. We have a very little discussion at policy level about the reparation. For example, this year, United Nations also marking the 15th years of the right to reparation and victim participation, and in these processes. But our government all the time and they talk about the reparation, but they only compensated from monetary value. And so our government agencies and an institution, they have considered reparation as a monetary compensation, and which is not true. So that's why in this concern, the concern agencies, they have to consult with the wider victims group and the overall society, and these issues, and it has to become a common national agenda.
Well, Dr. Sharma, what are your recommendations for all initiatives taking place in Nepal, despite the fact that institutions were not able to address the concerns of victims, as you are sharing? What are your key recommendations to the state agencies in Nepal, especially the government of Nepal?
Let me focus only on transitional justice bodies. I think from the beginning, these two transitional justice mechanisms, such as Commission of Inquiry on Enforced Disappearances and Truth and Reconciliation Commissions, have been caught into controversy. I think their legitimacies have been questioned from the very beginning, and this is because the way the Parliament passed the Truth and Reconciliation Commission Act that provides the legal foundation for these two mechanisms. These, I don't know whether you recall, these Act was actually passed by the Parliament without letting any parliamentarians to have any consultations, any discussions on the bill, different aspects of the bill, let alone civil society and victims associations. So a number of sections in the TRC Act have been questioned, challenged legally in the Supreme Court. Victims have challenged that, and we have supported that initiative. And the Supreme Court has found a number of sections in the TRC Act being incompatible, violating Nepal's own constitution and Nepal's international obligations. That is the reason why we have not been able to extend our support to the Truth and Reconciliation Commissions and Commission of Inquiry on Enforced Disappearances. With these kind of questions of legitimacy, not having any legitimacy, and this kind of profile, none of these commissions could actually deliver their mandates, which we have seen after their 4 years of operation. So that is one thing that we need to be very clear from the outset. That's why what we have been recommending to the government for a number of months now is that let's have a wider public discussions. Let's include victims in the consultations. Let's have wider discussions and consultations with civil society, different actors, and discuss what are the key objectives that we have from this transitional justice, why we actually want to have transitional justice mechanisms in the country at the first place, how do we address some of those international standards that we have to respect, how do we actually ensure non-repetitions, for example, and the mandates that we provide to these bodies. So the consultations and public ownership, the victims' ownership, civil society's ownership of these mechanisms are key to the success of these mechanisms. That hasn't happened yet. The government has promised to amend the Act as per the decision of the Supreme Court, but unfortunately, half a decade has been lapsed. We have not really seen the amendment in that Act. These two bodies should not really be operated until there is a new Act enacted through the public process, or at least amended through the wider public consultations. Only after the Act is amended, then only the government should appoint the commissioners, having a trajectory work in this field, for example.
Are you hopeful that would happen?
If we really put our concentrated effort, it's possible. I don't really see why it is not possible, because there is no other way out to this process. We cannot repeat the same kind of problems again and again. We have already spent millions of dollars in these two commissions without being able to deliver their mandates. How long do we want to do this? So I think if there is a concentrated effort from media, from wider civil society actors, victims associations, victims groups, and international community, I'm pretty hopeful that this is how we should really go ahead. And the benefit of this would actually goes to the political parties. At the end of the day, they are the one to really deliver their promises.
Well, you are sharing with us very interesting issues, but we are coming to the end of the show. Do you have anything to say to our audience that I have left to ask you very quickly, Dr. Bhandari?
I think this is very important issues about, what Dr. Sharma said, and about the non-repetition. I think the Nepal conflict, knowingly or unknowingly, is repeating again. and we have seen some recent killings, and then the human rights violations, torture, and I think still there are some political prisoners today. And then government even banned one political parties in the name of crimes, and also they are also involved some ways. So government must deal differences peacefully, and also the other political actors or parties, they have to also move peacefully.
Well, Dr. Sarma, your final thoughts very quickly.
I think for me, without really making some progress in addressing impunity, Nepal cannot really restore a rule of law and provide stability in the country. Rule of law, law treating equally to everyone is the sort of backbone of any democratic society. If we really want to see democracy being flourished in this country, development being really established in this country, I think we have to really restore rule of law, which is really bringing those responsible of committing crimes to justice, irrespective of who they are. If we continue to be seen, if Nepal is seen as the country protecting perpetrators instead of victims, and if it continues to enjoy impunity, protect impunity, promote impunity, I think questions will be asked whether Nepal has capacity or political will to address these past crimes. That means whether there should be a sort of international jurisdictions of justice be applicable in the context of Nepal. That would actually open different debates, and I see that possibility as well. So I think for the interest of Nepal, it's very important that we put our heads together to bring this transitional justice process to a sort of logical conclusions.
Thank you very much for joining our show. It was a pleasure talking to both of you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity as well.
Dear viewers, time now to wrap up the show. Keep watching us. See you next week. Namaste.